So nice short gospel, right? That means a long homily. You guys knew that. Those went together like that. So as I said, we're celebrating Good Shepherd Sunday. And we always hear one of these passages, one of the shepherd passages where Jesus talks about himself being the Good Shepherd. Like I said, we have a short one today. Jesus tells us his sheep hear his voice. We hear the Master's voice. I think sometimes, though, in our world, it's hard to hear the Master's voice. He's getting drowned out by other things. I went a long time in my life without hearing it, or without listening for it. Or, the reason that came to mind this week is there's always some big anniversaries in this part of April for me. Good or mostly good. Friday, the 19th of April, is an anniversary of both my friend Coley passing away. That was sort of my beginning of my faith. 5 years after that, on the same day, as I was at seminary going through interviews to be accepted, my mother died. So the 19th is always a big day for me in April. And then tomorrow is going to be my 13th anniversary of being Catholic. That was the date of the Easter Vigil that I came into the church. So it's an interesting time of year for me. It was, like I said, I didn't listen, or I wasn't hearing for a long time, but now 14 years ago, 1999, this week, that was when I first heard or first started being willing to listen to the Master's voice, searching it out even, ultimately. Sometimes, since then, I've heard him really clearly. Sometimes it's been a little whisper that I had to really listen for. Sometimes I put my fingers in my ears because I didn't want to hear what he wanted to tell me. But his voice has been constant. It's always been there. It's a voice I trust. A voice that led me here. This is, on top of being Good Shepherd Sunday, it's also World Day of Prayer for Vocations. So we want to pray today for more vocations to the priesthood, to the consecrated life, to the diaconate. And I know those are the first things we think of, and that's really what World Day of Prayer for Vocations is asking us to pray for. But we also want to think about our individual vocation. Because whether you're live the consecrated life, or you're a deacon or a priest, even if you're not any of those things, you still have a vocation in life. Each of us has a vocation, something that God is calling us to in our life. And at the core, the very first thing, each of us have a vocation to holiness, number one. Nobody's exempt from that. We have a vocation to try and imitate our Lord in our lives as best we can. Hopefully his voice that we hear helps us to do that. But as a priest now for almost 5 years, what I hear out there, whether it's in confession or otherwise, is we don't think we do a very good job of listening to his voice or of imitating Christ. Maybe we're right some of the time. Maybe imitating Christ isn't always the first thing on our mind when we're faced with frustration or anger or injustice or loss. But I think we do a better job than we think we do. I think that when the chips are down, that's when we see who we really are. And I think we all know that this week the chips were down. Now we're all grappling with what happened in Boston all week. It hit close to home because it is close to home. So many people injured, people killed, people scared, stuck in their houses for a whole day. But the images that have stuck with me in the past 7 days are just those regular people. Just like, I used to go down to Boston on Patriots Day all the time. Just those regular people who were there to watch the runners, to cheer on the runners, to enjoy that beautiful day. Ended up becoming runners themselves, but they weren't running away. They were running towards the smoke. They were running towards the injured so they could help people. so they could serve, so they could offer themselves in some way. And that courage, that desire to serve, to help, to give of ourselves, that's a gift from our Good Shepherd that's in each one of us. And I think those folks showed us the best of ourselves on Patriots Day. We saw people actually living out that vocation that each of us has to love one another, to help one another, to comfort one another. And wherever and whenever we see that kind of compassion and service, Christ is there. Our Good Shepherd is present there. He was present there in the people tearing up their own clothes to make tourniquets for those who were injured. He was present in the runners that just kept on running to go to the nearest hospital to give blood because they knew it was going to be needed. There was a wonderful doctor. I don't think he's even given out his name. Another reason for me anyway, to really appreciate him. He ran in the marathon and then went to his hospital. He was a surgeon, so that he could offer his skills to help with the people who were injured. Christ was present in all of those things. Christ's voice was definitely heard that day. His love and compassion was present through the compassion and care that was shown. He was present in the sense of duty and service that all those first responders showed. He's still present. He's present in the grief of those who lost loved ones, who had loved ones injured. He's present in the sacrifice of Sean Collier, the MIT police officer who was killed on Thursday. All he wanted to do was protect and serve. He had just found out he got his dream job. He was going to be a Somerville police officer. But Christ's voice can be heard in all those situations and all those actions. Christ's voice telling us, love one another as I have loved you. Give yourselves for one another. That's our shepherd. That's the voice we need to hear. Christ's voice. Christ's voice helping each one of us to open up our hearts to what he is calling us to, whatever our vocation is. Beyond that core vocation to holiness, vocation to love, whatever our individual vocation is, however we can serve, whether it's as a mom or a dad, a doctor, a police officer, a teacher, a carpenter, whatever it might be for each of us, at our core, we need to remember we share that primary vocation we saw at work in Boston. A vocation to love as Christ did. So that in doing that, we can make our Good Shepherd's love of all people visible